Hello, I have a spooky eye, but I'm going to do a review of The Clvrngs by Anthony Trllp, an 1867 novel. It's one of his standalone novels. I'm doing this along with adjunct to parasitically to Steve Donahue, who is doing a read-along of the standalone novels of Anthony Trllp in 2020. The lonely Steve's Lonely Trllp read-along. This month we've been reading all together now The Clvrngs, and I will leave a link down below to Steve's going through kind of chunk by chunk of this novel. This is just my review overview of the novel at the very end of the month. So yes, The Clvrngs is yet another of Anthony Trllp's novels where a clueless, unworthy hairdo of a guy is pursued by women who are far superior to him in every way, who really should just go off and be happy themselves and that. But no, we're in a super patriarchal society, and they have to have a man to marry because they're not actually legal human beings. So as we go along in this novel opens with Hugh Clavering, the hairdo in not Harry Clavering, the hairdo in question, who is jilted by Julia, who is they've gotten right almost to, I think, to the point of engagement, but Julia's decided, look, neither of us have money. Harry is the son of a reverend, and she just doesn't have much money of her own. She's like, look, this is not smart. I am going to go marry Lord Ongar, who is this dissipated, drunkard, rich dude. I'm gonna go marry him because this is something I'm gonna get to live life as I actually want to live it. And yes, I love you and you love me, but it's not gonna work. So goes off, does that. A year goes by. In that year, Harry has he's decided, he needs profession. He doesn't want to go into the church and business like his father. His father, who is kind of rather disappointed because he wants to actually go off riding and do a lot of other stuff. He's not actually a very spiritual, religious man himself, but it's a profession. Basically, it's a job. You definitely get that feeling from the father. And Harry's like, well, I don't want to do this either, but I'm going to become an engineer. And, Victorian society has great buildings and stuff like that. You could think, oh, actually, that might be an actual profession. And so he is apprenticed or whatever to the Burton family, specifically, the father, but he gets in with the family, and they have a youngest daughter that hasn't been married off to one of the partners yet, a Florence Burton. And she's like, wow, this is like a very convivial, lovely kind of family life with the Burtons. The Burtons are really just kind of an awesome family. They get along together well. They're holding each other up. You can see that, I can see why Harry would be attracted to this, and to Florence, who is really a delightful, really nice kind of true kind of woman. And so they get engaged to be married. But the year goes by and Lord Ongar dies. And Lord Ongar has died not in a pretty way. He's apparently been, he's drunken himself to death. Very ugly scenes. Apparently this is all happening often in Italy, where bad stories come back about Julia, and maybe she's had some kind of engagement with somebody else there. It's just like bad stuff. That he dies, she inherits Lord Ongar's kind of fortune and stuff like that. But her family, led by Hugh Clavering, who is the big muckety muck of the district, who has kind of basically he's the highest, he's the most wealthy, he has the estate and everything. He does not welcome his sister-in-law back, even though he is the one who sort of set up this marriage in the first place, and is like, oh yeah, marry for money, get stuff, all that in there. It's like, no, he doesn't welcome her back. He's really cold to her, and because he doesn't accept her back, basically all of society goes, well, oh, she obviously is a fallen woman. She was doing bad. She must have been doing bad things over there, because even her brother-in-law, Hugh Clavering, wouldn't accept her back. So she's in this really crappy position. Harry is sent to kind of welcome her back, to kind of help her back welcome her off the boat and, help get her lodging in London and stuff like that. And maybe as expected, what develops is Harry has to decide between, my reigniting emotions for Julia, who is now this wealthy widow, and Florence, who is good and true, but like I would have to work, and I wouldn't be a very good engineer and stuff like that. So that is the kind of the big dynamic that is set up. The main dynamic that is set up in this novel is like, who will he choose? Will he choose Julia, who is kind of depicted as kind of a fallen woman in this society? She chose money over love, which in some ways struck me as rather hollow, because it's a society where there usually people are going, you should make sensible marriages, you shouldn't marry for love, you should look at like what the life circumstances are and just how things are going to be, like really you should be realistic and marry someone who's going to give you a proper living and stuff like that. And though Julia isn't shown as like a materialistic person, she is shown as a fairly sensible person. But now she's like, but now I could give Hugh what he wants. And Harry and Hugh. Why, Trllp, do you do that? Harry is like, Harry, he's a good fellow. Everybody likes him, but nobody thinks he's going to make a good engineer. He just doesn't have the drive or determination to actually work. But boy, if he was rich, he would make a great lord, which is just like, hey, I'm not rich. I would make a great lord too. It's like, maybe there is something to be said for some people. Some people are good at being aristocratic, and but it grinds on you a little bit. Like, you're a useless twit, so the best job for you would be to be a rich man. It's like, it's kind of rankles my my socialist bones, I guess there. Or maybe my meritocracy or something in there. Regardless, Trllp actually puts a couple of things in here as kind of side by sides. The one that I think I found the most interesting was that Harry's younger sister, I can't even remember her name now. She develops a attraction to the Reverend Clvrngs, his assistant, Mr. Saul, who is a religious man, who is somebody who's working very hard for the spiritual and kind of the material needs for people in their purview of their thing. I'm sorry, I can't remember the words of what the area is, but he's working to help the people there, and the family is quite horrified when he declares his love for the youngest daughter, and they're like, no way are we going to marry you. You are poor. You will not be able to support her in any way, which is like, you mean like how with Julia and Harry it was going to be that, and to cap things off, we have Harry very much taking a stand against this marriage ever happening, like, that would be terrible, so it's interesting how you have the hero of the story is like in this conundrum and is like, it should be true love. But when it comes to an actual example of true love where they're actually trying to do it, nobody supports them, nobody does. And it's only due to kind of the machinations of the plot and how Trllp wonderfully kind of weaves things through that things maybe work out in that Trllopian way of people get settled and married and things like that at the end. There's no doom and gloom, no people condemned to poverty in these in a Trllp book. Well, not the good heroes of the story. The heroes. Harry is the hero of the story. He's the protagonist of the story. I'll go with protagonist. Trllp goes hero, and I think when he says hero, he doesn't necessarily mean somebody who's being heroic as much as it's somebody who we're going to invest in. And yeah, I'll get to that at the end of the review. So obviously now I've gotten myself off on a tangent there, but yeah, so in the end of the book, I don't know, I refer to this as like kind of like with Phineas Finn, which it gets written after this, seems to be the kind of useless young gentleman Mark II. And with Phineas Finn, part of the Trllp's Pallister series, I spent that first book of Phineas Finn wanting to strangle Phineas Finn because he was such a useless guy in comparison to the female characters in this book who all obsessed over him and wanted him and stuff like that. But with Phineas Finn, we get Phineas Redux, where you actually test Phineas Finn and you test his mettle. And he put him through the ringer, and I care for him at the end, and I actually respect him at the end. Harry is actually kind of a much more useless Phineas Finn. Phineas Finn at least went into politics and was working that way and seemed to have talents. Harry, maybe because he is so talentless, he's like, he's going to be a bad engineer. He would have been a terrible clergyman, but he's going to make a good rich guy. I really had a hard time just finding very much of an investment in there, and thus if I don't care about Harry, well, then the two women who are fighting over him, I really start having a hard time having respect for them or caring about them. There's also a notable thing in this book, that this book makes some choices of what to leave out. We leave out Julie's relationship with Lord Ongar. That is completely skipped over, and a part of it is just sort of allude like how terrible and awful it was. We can't even mention it, but we don't really get any sense of what that relationship was like other than there was money, and that was it. And if it's only money, well, then you do have a hard time thinking of Julia as being a sensible person, because it just seems like such a cut and dry thing. He refuses to, Trllp does not let anything more other than that get in the novel, and it seems to be much more. It's not just a choice for efficiency as it is a statement. And the other thing is that Florence, the one of those points of that what's supposedly a love triangle, we don't get a lot of Florence in this book. In a lot of ways, Florence family, the Burtons, who as I said, are really presented as this kind of really good, kind of strong familial unit, really nice people. Like these are the people you would want to go to Christmas dinner with. You'd like to hang out with on a weekend and just hang out with them, because they're just, really awesome people. But it's because they are presented so strong, Florence very much fades off into the corner a lot. She is just seen as kind of a bit of a paragon, which isn't really that interesting. I guess that makes Julia, and maybe Trllp was trying to both bolster Julia's weakness on the whole Lord Ongar thing, by making Julia kind of making Julia just more of a paragon, to make you go, oh, which one will he choose? Which one will he choose, to try and balance things out? I mean, it's an extremely well structured book, but in some ways, I feel like the careful structuring of the book hurts the characters of the book. Making it, while I can respect like how well put together this book is, and how I like some of the parts, I don't really connect as much to the characters, and I really am a character driven reader. So I didn't care about them as much. This is probably why, if I take a look at a book like the Clvrngs, and I take a look at the duology, which is Phineas Finn and Phineas Redux. I really, those books really obviously go far higher up for me, especially because, and Phineas Finn has got all the politics in it, which is all that wonkiness is something that's going to appeal to me that might not appeal to a lot of other readers. So yeah, I enjoyed the Clvrngs, but the Clvrngs to me felt like, this is the book that Anthony Trollope needed to write to get to Phineas Finn and Phineas Redo, and for that I really enjoy it. And it was interesting to go back and read something like this, which structurally was really good, but character-wise wasn't going to really hit it until we get to those books, at least for me. So yeah, that's my review of The Clvrngs by Anthony Trollope. Thank you, Steve Donahue, for taking us through these lonely Trollops. I'm really enjoying this over this year of just getting more and more Trllp. Trllp is such a fun interesting writer, someone who's really good at his structures, is good at his characters. I found a lot of interesting characters in here. I didn't even get into Sophia Gordeloup as just just this scheming daughter of the count that's trying to suck up, trying to suck Julia into his clutches. It's like, oh, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed disliking her and all that stuff. So yeah, it's more pleasure. It's always pleasure with Trllp. All right, more videos later.